So now my oxygen sensor is down here, and you can see it. And I'm just going to tighten it up. Alright, so now all I have left to do is to wire up the controller to the harness in the truck. And so what I did is, I've got an example here. I separated the wires and I labeled them as to where they need to be connected to make it easy on myself. Now, where did I get these numbers from? Well, you got to get a pinout for your particular ECU in your vehicle. And so I got a pinout to see exactly which pins did what. And I confirmed that with what they sent me to install the new computer, the new controller, or the ECU. And I made sure that they went all to the same devices that they're talking about, which it did. So after that, all I had to do, after all that research, is make myself a nice little road map. And now I know exactly what to connect to where. Also, I went ahead and grabbed my harness, found the wires, and put labels on them so that it's just a matter of matching them up now. Now, the only exception is wire 29, pin 29, where it wants you to cut it. The rest of them are going to get spliced together. So we won't cut the other ones, only cut number 29. Alright, now I'm going to get to the business of wiring and soldering and getting all these things connected. Now my wiring harness has been completed. Now you see I still have labels on there. I'm going to go ahead and leave my labels on. I've got my splices all done and all the wires connected as they should be. I used color-coded electric tape where I could, and tried to make it look as nice as I could. Now we're ready to put the connector back on. We'll zip tie these all together and get ready for the new computer. Now we'll take the new computer and we'll put it together. And let's get the vacuum line for the map sensor and connect it. Let's put the vacuum line on first. You don't have to do anything special, but you do have to get it all the way on there. Just a little more. There we go. Now get a wrench and tighten this up. There we are. Double check my map vacuum line. There we go. And now we've got to fit it back into its place with these new lines, making sure we don't mess them up. And it fits. Now we're ready to start the electronic part of it. Now first I'm going to open up this bag that has a USB line in it. And this we can plug in right here And now we're ready to get the computer set up and start programming. Now, what I've got going on is the new ECU is in the truck, and I've set up a computer to be able to program the new ECU in the truck. So what they wanted me to do was to hook up the computer, put the software in, which I've taken care of all the software, installed the software onto the computer in order to be able to program the ECU. So the first thing they wanted to do is make sure that the factory map sensor was unplugged. And this truck doesn't have one because it's OBD1, and there just wasn't one on it. So the next thing is to turn the engine, not turn it on, but just turn the ignition on, and we'll make sure that we hear the fuel pump. If the fuel pump goes on, then we know the ECU is doing its job and we're ready to proceed. Now it's already plugged in. I plugged the USB wire into the computer from the ECU, so we're all ready to go. So the first thing, we'll turn on the ignition. And I heard the fuel pump turn on and then turn off. So now we know that that's correct. So I'm going to turn that back off. I'm going to read my instructions, see what step is next. Now it's time for us to create a new file in the computer for the tuning. Now it's scanning to find the equipment now. It says no controller found, so we're going to have to do a little bit of troubleshooting. I have to do just a little bit of troubleshooting to find out why it's not finding the controller. Okay, so I did a few steps offline while I was trying to figure out what's going on. So let me catch you up to speed of where we are now. Now the first thing I did is I connected the computer to the ECU to the computer so I could start reading it, and I got no connection found message. Don't forget to turn the ignition on so that the ECU in the car, in the truck, will be able to be read by the computer. So once I got past that, I got all the pieces of software configured and set up and calibrated, and there's a step-by-step process for doing that. Now where we're at is we've cranked it over, made sure everything is connected to the software on the computer correctly, and so now what we need to do is we need to check the timing on the engine. So I'm going to get my timing light out and check the timing on the engine. It will not be running, but what we have to do is make sure that we are 10 degrees before top dead center. Okay, now I've got the truck all set up. I've got the computer installed now, and everything's communicating between the laptop and the ECU. And everything has been set properly. There were a couple of setup problems. Let me go through those real quick. The first problem that we ran across is that the default setting for the fuel injectors was 57 pounds. And my fuel injectors only put out 17 to 19 pounds. So it was flooding the engine. It wouldn't even run. So that was the first problem. Once that was solved, it would start, but it was running extremely rich. And we discovered that the problem was that the map sensor was reading atmospheric pressure while the engine was running. And the reason that was happening is because the little tube on the inside of the computer had come loose where it goes through the case. And so I was able to insert that back in there, and the dead giveaway was that when the engine was running, you could hear the air getting sucked through the ECU. Okay, and that way I knew that there was a problem there. I got that solved, and then the map sensor reading went from the hundreds, which is atmospheric pressure, to about in the 30s, which is where it should be. So once I got that solved, Then we started working with the different settings in the computer, and the next thing I had to do was to go through the procedure that they gave me to make the DIS system work, which is the distributorless ignition system. Now it has two banks of coils, one for the exhaust side of the engine and one for the intake side of the engine. Well, one side wasn't working, so we had to go through some special procedures that are in the instructions in order to get that activated and working properly. So now everything is working fine. The next thing that we have to do is I've got the laptop connected to the ECU. I'm going to pull up the auto tune feature so that we can go out and drive it and let the engine tune itself. Okay, so here's my default cluster gauge in the software. And so now what I'm going to do is tune analyze live is the page I'm going to pull up. Now this is the page I'm going to need. Once I turn the engine on, I'm not going to crank it, I'm just going to turn the ignition on, and you will see that it comes alive and it is ready for me to go drive it now. And while I'm driving it, I will select Start Auto Tune, which I'll go ahead and select it now. And now it's doing it. It's not running yet, but it's starting to look for problems in the map so that it can change the settings as need be. Okay, time for me to go drive the truck. So we're starting out the drive, and notice how many things it's changing over here. And we just hit accept from time to time, or apply from time to time, to get it to apply it to what the engine's doing. Now every time I stop, I'm going to apply the changes, and let's save it to the ECU every once in a while. The changes are going really well. Let's drive. The whole spectrum of the power band seems to be working much, much better. So we're going to call this a win, and this project is successfully completed. So the Ranger has been upgraded with a new ECU so it actually runs right, and all that effort of rebuilding the engine and getting everything running has finally paid off, and it's running right. Until next time, this is Steve from the American Garage. Thanks for watching The American Garage. If you liked this video, hit the like button and leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe.